Just a little about me. My name is Yaron Koren. I'm an enterprise MediaWiki developer, consultant, and evangelist. I'm based in New Jersey in the United States, which is where I am right now. I've written a number of extensions. I just listed some of the more well-known ones, and I helped create Canasta, which Jeffrey just presented. I'm the founder CEO of WikiWorks. Very recent news is that I'm also now the CTO of a startup called WikiAsk. You should go check it out. It's already live at wikiask.org. Although we're still making a bunch of changes and so forth, but it's already there, and you can feel free to contribute content and so forth. Yeah. Yeah, those are both doing well. I have a book working with MediaWiki and a MediaWiki related podcast called Between the Brackets. You should check both of those out. So we're going to go through some of my extensions, and I'm defining new as anything added in the last year. So let's go through it. So page forms. I'll get to some demos in case you don't know page forms. The one really interesting thing is that now there's a parameter called values from Wikidata. This is just as of just pretty recently, as of a few months ago, maybe. So it takes in property equals, I forget what those things are called, item values, and you can have more than one, and they're separated by ampersands. So here we can just have a combo box that auto completes on all countries as they're defined within Wikidata. And you can also have dependent auto completion along the same lines. So what does this mean? The first part here is P31 equals Q515. That means you're looking for all cities where country, and in this case it's the country property, is equal to the field that the user specified in that the form field whose template is building and whose field name is country. Building, just in case this is a form about buildings. I prepared a little demo here if I can find it. Oh man, too many tabs. Is it this one? Hold on. Nope. Oh, how embarrassing. Oh, here it is. Okay. Yeah, so this is actually a whole demo form for Wikidata. Okay, well, here, I should have blanked it. I gave away the ending there. So let me put in a country. I had Netherlands there as the demo, but let me try France. Hopefully it's in here. It's retrieving data from Wikidata. Was not expecting this to fail. Let me try this again. So yeah, this whole form is composed of different demos of Wikidata retrieval. Well, this is really odd. Can you guys hear me still, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is a very unusual place for the demo to fail, just on loading the page. Is Discourse DB down? What is going on? Nope, that's fine. Okay, well, All right, we'll get back to it. The next thing. Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, why Wikidata specifically? There's already a parameter called values from external data that lets you, in general, get values from any external data source using an extension called external data, which we'll also get to. So why is there special handling for Wikidata? Well, it's superior to values from external data in that it offers so-called remote autocompletion, as it's referred to in page forms. Basically, every time you type a character, it re-retrieves the data from Wikidata, which you can't do with values from external data. So it lets you have huge data sets, which obviously you need with Wikidata. And of course, Wikidata is the most important data source there is. I don't know if there's any objection to that statement. Okay. All right, it loaded, so that's good. Okay, so let me type in. Okay, so type in a country of France, and the values behind the scenes here in the form definition exactly match what I had there in the slide. So now, I don't know. Nice. See if there's any cities that start with Nice. Did I hear Nice?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, ironically, Paris is not here because there's weird stuff. Well, this gets into an interesting aspect of Wikidata. There's often weird labeling. Paris might be under big city or something else. There's just some strange classes. I think in general, the data in Wikidata could afford to be cleaned up a little. But anyway, you get the idea. Let's see if Nice shows up. Okay, Nice didn't show up either. Some data sets are better for this kind of thing than others. Are more consistently defined. Here's an example of a. It doesn't have to be autocompletion. Here's an example of a checkboxes input type that also is based on Wikidata. I can show you the form definition for that, just to clarify things. That is here. So fine. So it's I think it's instance of TV series and then genre equals medical drama, something like that. So that's the basic idea, and I'll be interested to see what kinds of applications this has. I mean, in theory, it opens up form editing to just a lot more general data. And it prevents maybe the need to import a lot of knowledge into the wiki just for the sake of autocompletion or anything else. Okay. The other big thing in page forms is wizard style display, and here's an example of what this can look like. Basically, you put these HTML tags that have the specific class PF wizard screen around the different parts of your form, and then it groups them together into screens. So, well, if you don't know what I mean by wizards, hopefully this clarifies it. You go sequentially through the different screens, and it's I mean, the concept is pretty similar to header tabs or to a tabbed display, which you can already do, but it's some people prefer this approach. It guides the user through the different parts of the form. So that's potentially interesting in certain cases, especially if you have to explain. There's a lot of explanation needed for the different inputs, and you want to guide the user through it. Had a little demo for that too. Yeah. Okay. So there's the same idea, and then you would put the standard inputs, the save and so forth, in their own screen at the end. Oh no, there's one more. Okay, yeah, category option within template params. Template params itself is a fairly new feature. Also, within page forms, you put it within a template, not within a form. But it lets you define all the parameters for a template, and this is really what I want to move to, just having this kind of standard definition within a template so that you eliminate redundancy. The more you can store within template params, the more centralized everything is, with the ultimate goal of having everything be in one place. So when you want to make a change, you only need to make that change in one place, as opposed to 3 or 4 or whatever it is. So this is just, a step in that direction. Now you can specify that a specific parameter in the template points to some category, and then when you edit with the form, then it automatically, unless you override it, automatically gets the values from that category if you're doing autocompletion on that field. And then also when you display that information, assuming you use the template display parser function to have the template display its contents, then it will also know if a certain project manager page doesn't exist, it will use the form corresponding to the person category to as the link, as the red link for that. It's a little abstract, but the basic idea is moving in the direction of trying to store everything in one place. Page schemas, moving along, is another extension of mine. I've tried to make the interface look a little cleaner and easier to manage. If you know about the handling of multiple instance templates within page forms, it's based off of that. So here you can see each field is minimized, and which makes it easier to sort them. So I have an example here, just a random kind of schema thing, just kind of nonsense field names and so forth. But you can see by default they're minimized. I can open each one to modify its contents, and then once they're minimized, it's a lot easier to rearrange them or to remove them, etc. And don't worry, the removing them doesn't actually remove them permanently unless I save. So that's the basic idea. Hopefully it makes the page schemas, which has been kind of page schemas interface, which has been kind of bulky, easier to use. External data is another extension. It allows for, if you don't know about it, it allows for querying outside data sources, whether they're URLs, usually APIs, databases, files, and there's a few others, and LDAP servers, local programs. It allows for displaying their data on the wiki page without actually having to import it into the wiki. There's been a huge amount of additions in the last 3 years, especially in the last year, I would say, mostly done by a guy named Alexander Machine, who's now a co-author of the extension and has done most of the work on it recently. So I'll just cover some additions from last year. There's been a lot of changes and more changes to come. Here, let me show you, in case you're wondering what this whole external data thing is here. Let me just show you a demo. All of these are just different examples of data that's being retrieved from, these are all being retrieved from APIs, from web-based APIs. All of this stuff, like if I go here, you can see, it's just retrieving the data and then displaying it. I guess the most exciting demo is here at the end for where it gets data from Wikidata. So all of this is just a query of Wikidata, so you can get it in table form, which is actually difficult to do on Wikidata itself. So it's an improvement over that, I suppose, to some extent. So before external data had all kinds of global settings that were all with the prefix EDG, and it was kind of messy. Now they've essentially been replaced by one variable called WG external data sources, which is a global array where you can set all kinds of settings for each source. So that makes it more convenient. Again, this really only makes sense if you know about external data, but before you had to specify the connection between local variables and variables within the data source you're using, whether it's an API database or anything else. Now, if the variable names all match, then you don't need to do that anymore. Also, you don't need to specify necessarily a format anymore of the source you're getting, assuming it's text of a structured form like CSV or XML, etc. It does auto detection, which is pretty neat. There's some new supported formats before. There were a variety before, most notably CSV, JSON, and XML. Now there's two new ones, INI, which isn't, I mean, that's sort of the name we gave it for it, but it's essentially just a file with key equals value pairs per line, and then YAML, which is an actual format, which is coming to MediaWiki actually for configuration, but it's an extension of JSON if you haven't heard of it. So another interesting thing is file wildcards. You can get data from local files. Now you don't necessarily have to get just one file at a time. You can use wildcards to get all of them within a directory or some such. So that's pretty neat. Archive files, that's also a really interesting, quite new feature within external data. You can parse zip, etc. files, or the code can. So it can go into a zip file and sort of act as if it's a directory, and you specify the path within the archive. And this too, that parameter can also hold wildcards. So it really works just as if you were traversing a directory. There's a new parser function called format external table, which takes in a display format from Cargo. So you need the Cargo extension installed for this to work, and basically it just passes off the array that it gets to Cargo, and Cargo just calls that format on it. Get inline data is another interesting one. It adds a new data source, which is just straight text that you pass into the parser function. So here, if you have, I mean, it's not a very exciting example, but if you have some XML that holds a single value, then you can use external data to parse it and display the value. Presumably, it would be more interesting for a very large set of text than for something like this. Was there a question? Okay, I guess not. It is good to hear noises, though, sometimes, just to make sure that I'm not, talking to myself. Yeah. So this is actually the big one, and I guess I saved it for last. The idea is to have integrated data retrieval and display. So the old way to use it, which you saw a little bit in the examples to use external data, and now it's referred to as the legacy mode, is that first you have a call like get web data or get DB data or whatever it is. You pass to it all the relevant stuff. It sets these variables, and then later on in the page, you can display them with any of the functions like external value or for external table, or now format external table, as we saw. The problem, the big problem with this is that this might not work when MediaWiki switches to parsoid, because at that point the order of calling won't be guaranteed. So that second call might actually be done before the first one is, even though it's later on the page. And I think there'll be a talk about this later today by the actual Wikimedia Foundation people, so they would know better about this kind of thing. But I believe that's the expected behavior with parsoid. So that's obviously a big problem. If you call external value before get web data, then you know, it doesn't have any data to display. So the new way to use external data, which we're referring to as standalone mode, is that every call does both retrieval and display. So now parser functions like external value and for external table, etc., all can take in these retrieval parameters. In this case, it's URL, just about everything here, URL, format, and data. Everything but this first parameter. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wasteful if you use external data and then external value, sorry, and you have, you know, 5 or 10 or whatever it is calls to external value on the page, and each one retrieves this. If you do caching of retrieved data, it's not so bad, but it still will look bad. But I mean, this is the new approach as far as the standalone mode, where each function does everything. So the plan is to get rid of those parser functions that just do data retrieval: get web data, get DB data, the one I just mentioned, get inline data. Those will all be removed at some point. They're already deprecated. So that gets to something interesting. I guess that's it for new features in external data. But for the future of external data, it may make sense to reduce it down to just one parser function. I didn't mention it before, but all these parser functions I listed have a corresponding method in Lua, so it would be just down to just one Lua method as well. So how would it work? You specify the data source type in local settings.php, which already is often the case. I mean, if you're retrieving data from a database, then all of the database related stuff already goes in local settings.php, all the server name, password, and all of that. Unless it's just a URL or plain text, in which case it's up to you whether you want to specify it there. Ideally, there'd be standardization of the querying parameters. So right now, all of these things that you can only use for database data, ideally you'd be able to use for all of them. So it's really sort of source type agnostic. And then finally, the display method, you just specify one of these 3 parameters: either display text, which lets you manually display what you want to do with all those variables; display template, where you pass in a template. And sorry if you don't know external data and all of this is kind of new, but and finally display format, where you can specify a cargo format or whatever it is. So here's a possible future call. Maybe this new parser function would be called external data. Just to simplify things further, you specify the source, you have some filtering on it and ordering, and then you specify a display format, and you're all done. And now, one interesting aspect of this is people might not even know what the source type is. This could be a URL, it could be a database, it could be a local file, it could be an LDAP server. Maybe not an LDAP server, I'm not sure, in this specific case. Oh, and yeah, and I mean, it's already somewhat the case now, where if you're clever about it, you can make it so that a source is mysterious, but this would definitely work that way almost completely, where if you really want to keep the nature of your external data source hidden, you would be able to do that. Yeah, okay. And that was it for external data. Just one final extension, Flex Diagrams, which is a relatively new extension already. Just in the last year, it got support for diagrams.net, formerly known as Draw.io. People still usually refer to it as Draw.io. Diagrams.net is kind of a silly name for it, even though, I mean, that's the URL of it. So it already supported, Flex Diagrams already supported 3 types, BPMN, Gantt, and Mermaid diagram types, but now it also supports diagrams.net or Draw.io. So here's just a simple example of that. So yeah, so they're all in the Draw.io namespace, because it would have been weird to call it diagrams.net namespace. And then if you click on the edit diagram tab, you get this editor. It's really it's pretty amazing. I mean, I can see why it's a popular tool. You can do all kinds of things here. There, I try to save it. Let me see. I think that's fine. Okay, that didn't work. I think I did the wrong thing. I should have tested this beforehand. Let me just briefly try doing it again. I think you need to hit this save button. Okay. All right. There you go. Yeah. Probably the interface for that should be better to make it clear that you really need to hit the top save button and not the bottom save button for it to work. There we go. Well, great. That's it. Those are some of the recent additions. I hope people check those out.
Thanks, Yaron.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
I think we definitely are going to check them out. But I don't think that there's time for questions. No, it's
okay.
Oh, post questions directly to Yaron. Thank you.
Okay.